So our next speaker, he's the technical program manager at Logic Apps and Azure Scheduler directly. Please give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
So my name is Eric Lee. I'm a program manager at Microsoft, and today I want to talk to you about Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow is designed to help non-developers automate their workflow across different apps and services without having to write a single line of code. It provides users with the intuitive visual designer so you can connect to all these apps and services that you care about. And just like we mentioned before, like Logic Apps, we have more than 160 different services that you can connect to. What Flow helps you is, if you think about it, the hard part is about figuring out where to get the data and how to get that data. If I have many services that I want to integrate with, Flow takes out the hard work of figuring out how can I get that piece of data. So as a business user who is not an expert in writing code, I can focus on where the data flows, because that's where I am providing value as part of my role. So what do people do with Microsoft Flow? Well, we see different types of users using Flow differently, obviously, but 4 scenarios stands out. First is about getting notifications. If my boss sends me an email with high priority, I want to be notified on my mobile device. I want to get a push notification for it. I want to make copying of files to be done automatically instead of I having to do this first thing every day. If my account manager uploaded something to OneDrive for Business, I want to make a copy in our team's SharePoint site, and I want to use Flow for it. The third scenario is collection of data. If I run a SQL query and to get a table, I want to be able to automate that. I want to run this every week or every month to generate the report, send this to the people that I want to share it with, without me having to do this manually. The last scenario that we see a lot of people doing are to automate approvals. If I'm organizing a team event, if I'm working with an external team who will be uploading things that needs approval, whenever that happens, I want to send out an approval request to people who will be reviewing it. And whenever they click, yes, I approve this request, I want it to be done automatically, whatever the workflow that I define to do next. So then the next question you would ask is, there's Logic Apps and then there's Flow. Why both? And when should I use one versus the other? Well, let's take a look at it. Flow is designed, like I said, for non-developers, or in other words, business users and customers, and sometimes integration citizen developers. It's designed for self-service scenarios. I want to create a workflow or create a Microsoft Flow to automate things that I do myself on a daily basis. You would be using the web or mobile interface to design your flow, and you will be developing that in ad hoc, develop in production fashion. What that means is you would access to Microsoft Flow with your Microsoft account or Office 365 account. Flow really stands out from the other offerings with its deep integration with SharePoint. You can, in fact, navigate to a SharePoint list and create a flow right within the SharePoint experience with the templates that's offered here. Also, we have Approval Portal, which is a user-centric view for you to see all the approval requests, like I said, people use Flow for, that are sent to you. So you can review that, approve or reject accordingly without having to dig through all those requests in your email. On the other hand, Logic Apps is designed for IT professionals and enterprise integration developers. It's designed for you to create mission-critical, enterprise-grade integration scenarios and solutions. With the absence of a mobile device for you to create a Logic app on your phone, what you get in return are code view for you to do more powerful things inside the code view. You also get Visual Studio integration, which enable you to source control your workflow, and all the Azure resource management experience also come with Logic Apps. Templatized deployment, telemetry, Azure Alert are all the things that you get from Azure Logic Apps and not in Flow. You would access Logic Apps with your Azure subscription. And what that means is also Logic App will be able to provide a much deeper and streamlined integration with other Azure services. If you want to talk to a document DB, you don't have to figure out the connection string as long as the DocDB instance is in the same subscription as your Logic App, because we'll just figure it out for you because it's already in the same subscription. Plus, then there's also integration accounts, which enable businesses to do B2B EDI type of scenarios that's only available within Logic Apps. So, to put it simply, I think I would advise people to use Flow if your goal is to automate a personal tasks, to get notified, to synchronize files, to collect data, and etc. On the other hand, if something goes wrong in the workflow and someone have to be waken up in the middle of the night because it's critical to our business success and someone have to fix it the moment it happened, then it should probably be a Logic App. I like to think Flow exists to solve the last mile of integration problem. Traditional integration solutions, they start with a business process that needs to be automated, and then it ends at the doorstep of IT department. Requests for business personnel's daily tasks to be automated often get backed up or even ignored. The other problem with traditional integration solution is that it is contained within an organization or within a company. If you are a customer-facing company, your end users or your customers really get involved in that process. But Flow enables you to do that. And that's the last mile I'm in here. So why should I care, you ask? I'm already an integration developer. I know I will be using Logic Apps for my day jobs. Well, I think you should care about Microsoft Flow for 4 reasons. First, Flow lets business users to self-service and solve simple problems on their own. How often do you get requests saying, oh, I want to move this file from one SharePoint to the other? Now with Microsoft Flow, you will be able to show them just with a few clicks of a button how easy it is to do it themselves. And then you can focus on more important stuff. Second, Flow helps your customers to be more engaged, and we all know a more engaged customer are happy customers. Third, popular and more advanced flows that your business user develop make in popularity within the company or within the organization, and at some point, they need to graduate into a Logic App, so changes can be properly controlled, deployment can be automated, and telemetry can be tracked so you know what is going on. And when that happened, since you are already an integration expert, you have experience with Logic Apps, I think you will be the perfect person to take that over and make it into an enterprise-ready solution. Last, if we want to allow Flow users to be able to not only use the 160 out-of-box connectors to talk to services that we already support, but also talk to services that your business provides, someone will need to develop a custom connector. So not only can I bring data from Facebook into my Twitter, not only can I bring data from OneDrive to SharePoint, I can talk to services for this particular company. Again, since you are the expert for it, I think you are the perfect candidate to develop such connector. So that's all very abstract. And let's take a look at that through the lens of Contoso Fitness. In Contoso Fitness, we have Dave, who is a spin instructor. Dave teaches multiple spin classes across different locations at Contoso Fitness, and keeping track of the schedule can be challenging. What Dave wants is to get a daily email at the beginning of the day to tell him these are all the classes that you have scheduled for, so he can better prepare for the day. Now, the awesome Contoso Fitness class management already exposed an API for you to retrieve that data, but Dave is no developer. He doesn't know how to talk to that particular API and get the information he needs. So he went to IT, And the response he got from IT is, well, we can't help you because we're not really staffed to provide you with a custom portal where instructors can opt in and get emails. But there is an action in Microsoft Flow where you can get that data, then you will be able to use the Outlook connector to send yourself an email. So you can do this yourself with just a few clicks of a button. Then we have Joy, who is a member at Contoso Fitness. Joy made a New Year resolution to get fit, and she wants to come to the gym at least twice a week. What she also wants to do is to post to Facebook every time she visits. So it kind of motivates her, and her friends can also keep a tab on that to make sure that Joy is living up to her New Year resolution. Now, remember to post that can also be challenging. You swipe your key card, you enter the gym, and then you will be heading to the equipment or you're heading to a class. But the last time Joy was at the gym, she saw a poster saying, now all your check-in data can be automatically sent to Microsoft Flow, and the only thing you will have to do is to decide where that goes. All right. So that's the scenario that we want to show. And without further ado, let's actually switch to the computer and let's build a custom connector for Dave and Joy so they can use Flow for the scenario that they care about. Now, the first thing we want to do in this custom connector is to provide an action to Dave to get all the classes. And then we will switch to a trigger so Joy can be notified whenever she checks in at the gym. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to navigate to the custom connector page. Here I'm starting with a brand new environment. You see here I call it Contoso Fitness V1, in which I don't have any custom connectors. And we're going to build one from the scratch. There are multiple ways for you to define what a custom connector looks like. If your API is well-defined and you have a Swagger file define all the operations for your API, that is the easiest way. You can just simply upload that, provide some supplemental data, and then you're good to go. If you don't have that, you can also use Postman to make a few sample requests, one to each of the API endpoint, save the request and response. We'll also be able to parse that. Now, for this particular demo, I already have a Swagger, and actually, let me switch to the Swagger file and then just show me what it looks like. Thank you very much. So the Swagger is super simple. I have defined a host, which goes to an Azure Web Service. It has one operation called get my classes. There's only one input in which you provide an ID, and this will be the ID for the instructor, so we know whom to get those classes information for. The response have a few more pieces of information. It gives you the class ID, the instructor's name, class name, start time, end time, and etc. And that's pretty much it, what I have in my Swagger file. So I'm going to switch back. I'm going to load that. There are a couple of pieces of more information I need to provide. First is the brand color. So we'll just use the orange color that you see. And we're going to give it a name. We're just going to call it World's Greatest Fitness Club. The next thing you will be defining are the authentication. So we support all the typical authentications you want to use. Username and password, which is basic. You can use an API key or OAuth. Now for simplicity, I'm going to skip the authorization for this particular demo. You see, from the Swagger, we can already populate all these informations. What I'm going to do is actually to create a connector, because that usually takes about a minute or two to propagate through all the systems. Now, while it's propagating through the backend systems, here are a few enhancements we want to do. We want to make sure that the user knows what data they need to be providing. So for this ID, it's going to be instructor ID. All right, so that's that. And then let's take a look at the response. We follow the similar idea. So here, the ID is actually for the class. Again, most of the information are provided in the Swagger file. Here, you're just providing supplementary information that you want, and you can define how the connector is exposed inside Microsoft Flow. So let's update the connector, and hopefully by the time we enter that few piece of information, it propagates through the backend system. And we can switch to the test tab. So we created a custom connector. In order for you to use it, you need to create a connection for it. Because we don't require any authentication, a connection can be just created automatically. If you use OAuth, you will be signing in with the username and password here. Here, I'm just going to use my name as the ID. Let's see if the change has propagated through. So it takes some time. So let me switch to this particular instance where I have one pre-built already, and I can show you the testing experience. The testing experience makes sure that whatever you define, the operation that you cared about works before you spend too much time in Flow trying to debug it. So here you see it's successfully hitting my endpoint and return me 3 classes. So those are the 3 classes I will be teaching for the day. Let's see if that works. Not yet. OK, so let's switch to this. Here, what I'm going to do is to help Dave build a flow to get the class information every day. I'm going to start with a recurrence trigger. I want to run that every day. Then I will be using the contours to finish connector, the action to get all my classes for the day that I just developed. And here I'm supplying my employee ID. Then let's send that to my email address. But if you think about it, the data that we get are actually a JSON formatted. It wouldn't look too nice inside an email. So why don't we format that, and we'll be using the table action we have in Flow to create an HTML table out of a JSON object. And here, I also want to include the header so I know what each columns are for. And of course, let's consume that output of the table we just built. The first time you save a flow with a recurrence trigger will execute, so it knows when the next execution time should be. So here you see it was successfully executed and sent me an email. And if I switch back to my email account, here are the emails. OK, so one thing goes wrong is that I have to tell Outlook that I'm sending an email with HTML content. So it's as easy as switching a dropdown to define that my email is of HTML type. And we can go back to the flow and rerun it. If I go back here, you see now the data is being rendered as a table with the header and for the column properly formatted. So now we just help Dave to complete the scenario that he wants to get a daily email for all the classes that he is teaching. And if I switch back here for the connector that I just built, you see the change has propagated through, so you know I'm not lying. All right, so now let's switch topic and let's help Joy build a trigger. The trigger that we'll be building will be of webhook type. The idea is whenever I create a flow, I'm going to supply my membership ID. And I'm going to subscribe with Contoso Fitness, saying whenever I check in for this particular membership ID, call this callback URL to invoke my flow. Supply with some information that I cared about, and then I will take it from there to decide where the data would go next. So instead of using a pre-built Swagger, let's actually do this using the connection creation wizard. So I'm going to say I want a new trigger. I'm going to give this a name, say when I check in. We're going to say it's of a webhook type. Here, we're going to tell Flow how can you subscribe to a particular webhook point. So I know the API endpoint that I will be using. It's called register on check-in trigger. We'll be supplying two pieces of information here. The first is in URL. And URL is where we will be putting the callback URL so the service knows where to invoke us. The second will be customer ID. Because we're not using any authentication, so the user who are consuming this will have to provide the ID in the request. Here I'm providing a sample, and Flow will take care of generating that. I think I do have a sample here, so I'm just going to copy and paste that. All right, let me switch back really quick. Oh, there you go. This control was missing the first time I opened this page. I think it's because I didn't refresh after I created this for the first time. So let's see if this time it works. There you go. The next piece will be defining what the response will look like. This is whenever I checked in, what payloads will Contoso Fitness be sending me? Again, here I have a sample. It's going to tell me the total number of times I've visited Contoso Fitness and how many times I've visited it this month. Again, I'm just providing a sample output here, and Flow will take care of generating the schema. Again, you can choose to enrich the data if you like. We're going to skip that for now. The last piece of information we need to tell Flow is where to put the callback URL. So this is what we define the URL to be. I'm going to pick URL here. Let's update the connector. And we can test it really quick to see if it works. Again, it takes some time to propagate, so I'm going to switch back here. The service is basically going to return a 200, acknowledging that the subscription has been received. So now I can go back to my flow page and create a new flow from blank. This time, I will be using the trigger that we just created. It's called whenever I checked in. You see only one parameter is populated here because the URL will be generated by the Flow runtime, and it's not something that user need to care about. So here I'm going to supply a fake customer ID. And whenever I check in, I want to just simply post that to my Facebook page. All right, let's create the flow and see if it worked. So here I have a document DB instance. This is where all the subscription requests will end up with. And if we just refresh, hopefully we should see an entry called integrate 2017. And you see here is the URL that's generated that can invoke the flow we just created. So I'm going to switch back to Postman, provide that URL. Let's change the data a little bit. So we have visited this gym a whole lot. This month, we have visited for 18 times. Let's send a request. And if I switch back to the flow I just created, it should refresh automatically and acknowledging that whatever request we sent from Postman just got received. And if I were to switch to my Facebook page, there. I'm actually going to keep it there. All right. So if you're familiar with this experience of building custom connector, the question you will be asking is, wait, that wouldn't work because whatever custom connector you created is only available within the tenant. So if I am a developer within Contoso Fitness, only people who is inside Contoso Fitness will be able to use that. Dave is fine. He will be able to create the flow that he needs to get an email every day. But Joy won't actually be able to use it because he's not part of Contoso Fitness. And that's what we enabled you to do earlier this year to be able to publish a custom connector that you created within Flow and make it available for everyone. It's a 4-step process. We just show you the development process. So you would develop your custom connector in Flow within your own tenant, and you will be able to use Swagger or Postman to define what your operation looks like. Then there's testing. We kind of did it, but of course it will be more involved if you plan to bring that connector to everyone's radar and for them to use it. Again, you will be able to test within your tenant using custom connector testing wizard that I showed you, as well as building Flow. Once you are comfortable with the custom connector that you have built, you can submit to Microsoft, and we will review it and certify your connector. As part of the review process, we'll make sure that you actually own the service that you're designing a custom connector for, and we'll make sure that whenever your connector goes wrong, we have a person to reach out to so we can fix the problem and nobody's flow is broken. Then there's publish. Whenever your connector is developed and tested and certified, we will publish it to Flow, Power Apps, and Logic Apps. And then you can imagine the endless potential all the Flow, Power Apps, and Logic App customers can do with your connector. So I would encourage you to take a look at Flow, get started at flow.microsoft.com, and imagine the endless potential you can champion within your company for everyone to get more productive, for them to work less, but at the same time do more. Then learn more at aka.ms/connectordev. It has all the information you need to know to be able to develop your own custom connector, either consume it within your own tenant or make it public so everyone can use it. And that's all. Thank you very much.